Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. I'm going to share my screen here. It should be coming up shortly. Hopefully, it comes through in a minute or two, or sooner than that. We'll take a look at the charts. Bitcoin went over 8K briefly, pulled in right back in today. We'll see if that was the near-term top. I don't want to say the top, as in the ultimate top, but maybe a near-term top we may be seeing. There certainly has been some volume expansion. Obviously, price is going parabolic. All the telltale signs are there. It's just a matter of when, at what price. But it's interesting. Been quite the move. I think it's caught most people off guard, to be honest with you. Just been a relentless buying pressure all the way up. Maybe some front running to consensus. Maybe there was anticipation of a big announcement, an ETF or something, which we haven't seen yet. In fact, I saw some news today that one of the ETF proposals was delayed once again. And so who knows if that's timed all together with that. But we'll go over some of the thoughts here that I have on the longer term charts. Obviously, we're going to be looking at the daily chart, kind of the bigger picture view. That's really been the key right now. And it really has been the key since breaking out of 4,200. Just the daily chart has really been the most useful, the higher time frames. Certainly at the lower time frames, there's early signals that you can certainly use if you're a little bit more active with the trading. But I think the daily time frame is the bigger picture right now. And then we'll look at the alts. Most importantly, I'm still holding my alt positions, and glad I have. Ripple has probably been the best one so far, but we'll look at some of those relative to Bitcoin. And that's really the thought, right? It's like, what's going to happen if Bitcoin decides to pause? And a lot of it's going to depend on how it pauses. If it's a sharp correction to the downside, takes it back into the 6Ks, I would expect, maybe not always going to happen, but I would expect that the alts would see a pretty good hit on that kind of a move lower, just because of the correlation, and it's just generally the way things go. But if it's a little bit more constructive, if it's kind of a grind lower or choppy action up here, above 7K or above 6,600, then in that scenario, we could probably just, see that typical, Bitcoin pausing, alts having a party scenario. And so that's what I'm kind of hoping for. We see here a little bit of retracement, a little bit of catching up from the alt perspective. So let me see here. So hopefully you guys can hear me. If somebody could just kind of chime in real quick, say hello, do something on there. Just want to make sure before we get going here. So we'll look at the alerts, of course. We'll look at the watch list, see what's popping here from a BTC perspective. But it's interesting to see this market is now saying bullish, and previously it was just kind of blue across the board, strong. And that's because of the shorter time frames. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. And that's because the shorter time frame has pulled in a little bit. So this 4 hour, while it's still green, the BMI index is right at 60. It's like borderline about to turn yellow. And so if it does, that will start turning this into caution if it goes red. So daily, again, the daily chart is the most important. Near term, you're going to get these, shorter term noise fluctuations, but price, this BMI combined market value has moved down a little bit from just being pure strong and just crazy strong across the board. So, all right, let's look at the BTC chart. Now, what I have on the chart here is the Fibonacci extensions. And so the way I do that, let me clear it here so we can kind of understand what I'm looking at here. And so I was also comparing that to prior resistance. So if we look at resistance first, horizontal price resistance, this level here going across 8,500, give or take, right, was a wall to look at, right? Back here, this was kind of the break, the bounce, and the continued the downtrend. Obviously, back here, this was a bounce. And I mean, it's always important to put this into perspective because, I mean, look, we're talking now resistance levels from last July and last May, basically this time of year, last year, which, I mean, that's just still kind of like settling in for most people. When you think about that, is the fact that we're suddenly looking at July and May resistance levels is like, holy smokes, right? For those of you that were trading, I mean, or around, which most of you guys were, during this, crazy pre-break action here from, August to November, it felt like an eternity. And it felt like, oh man, if we even got back to 8K or 8,500. Wow, that'd be something. And here we are, just like slicing right through all those levels like nothing and getting right back to those prior resistance. So very interesting to see, very important, very bullish, no doubt. And it's always interesting when even the crypto fans and the long-term bulls are going, I hope there's a pause or a pullback along the way, because it just kind of caught a lot of people off guard. And now I'm getting the text messages. I got another one this morning from one of my quote unquote non-crypto buddies. And he was like, whoa, man, Bitcoin suddenly is at 8K. What's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. So it's just always an interesting kind of sentiment indicator to see that happening. So, but anyway, what I've done here is I've done the Fibonacci extension. So what I was looking at was basically an extension from this impulse move down to the lows and then the retracement back up. And then what you can do is you can do an extension for how high up over the retracement it would go. And so the way that works is you start at the bottom. It's the opposite of when you do a retracement extension. So if you do that, and where you started, it's kind of depends on what you consider the impulse move. You can start it on that day that it actually broke, or you can start it at that most local swing high just above it. And that's kind of the art to it, the finesse, but there's not really a lot of difference at that point. I'm going to start it at the top of that day. And then what I'll do is I'll pull this right back to the bottom here. And what that does is it gives us some upside projection targets. And you can see the 100% level is the one here that's at 62.62. And then I use 3 of them. And I'll zoom in here for us so you guys can see that a little bit easier here. 1217, and we did see that spike into the weekend and then pulled back. The 414 almost exactly hit it before that pullback, and then just a quick spike here today and took us right to that 816 level. And so, depending on where you do the extension, that's going to certainly change that a little bit. If you did it from, the top of this move here, then that puts your the 618 at closer to 8,600. And so basically it's there, right? It's close enough, in my opinion. It's kind of in that window of, plus or minus 1 or 2% of where that target would be. So we'll see if that's the target, quote unquote, the target. The thing with this, it lines up pretty well with this resistance here and here. And so there's a good chance that that is the target. If it's not, and it goes all the way to the 2, which would be amazing, but that takes us, basically lines up pretty well with this resistance here if it goes to the 200% extension, right? So those are the ones I'm looking at. Now, the fact that it's gone kind of parabolic here near term, volume is really spiking, and we're finally seeing potentially a reversal day happening. You could have said that 2 days ago, so, fair point. But you potentially could see a reversal trade happening here. Maybe that 618 is the target, and if not, somewhere in between these next two. But man, if it went that high, that would shock the crypto world, right? To just suddenly be at 9,800, 10K BTC here in the blink of an eye. And so we'll see what happens next. But I'm thinking we're starting to get there pretty close. The RSI here on the daily, there's a small divergence showing up. If we look at the shorter time frames here in a second, we'll see that a lot more clearly. And again, the volume spike, the telltale signatures are all there, right? As far as like, this is kind of starting to feel a little climactic, a little parabolic blow off type of action. But if there's news behind this, or there's something kind of driving that certainly could negate those points. And to your point, right, is TA, what's the TA justification for this move? Honestly, there really isn't one from a technical analysis perspective, other than the fact that once it broke above this range here that it was in for so long, multi-month range, there was just very little resistance above that. There was just a ton of volume traded at this range for so long, and of course at 6K. And so the fact that it finally broke above 6K and then broken, very quickly went straight through the sixes and right into 6,800, 6,900. There's no more resistance at that point, right? So from there, it was not that much to just go straight to 7 and to 8. This was really the big wall. And I expected more of a battle there, to be honest. I thought, okay, we'll hit 6,000, and there was just so much trading done here. I thought, getting through sixes is going to be a little tough. Man, just sliced right through it. So, there's just a lot of people that were buying the dips. I think a lot of this is certainly being institutional driven. There was a lot of talk about the big whales that literally bought right here when that April 1st day when the news broke. If you guys remember that, when it broke through that, it was talking about how it was just like a handful of orders and somebody bought like $70 million, something crazy worth of BTC. Ever since then, it was just kind of off to the races. So I think there is some institutional, you know, demand there that's certainly driving this, but it's certainly a Bitcoin story. It has been for that entire move, basically since that started. Sure, there was a few that popped along that way there, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, but for the most part, it's been a Bitcoin story since that breakout. And so that's kind of just been the levels to watch, right? So on the way down, now if it starts to pull back, let me clear the extension targets here for us, just so it doesn't get too messy. The same rationale has been kind of the same here so far, and that's the 10 EMA and then the 22. But look at what's happening now that prices are starting to go parabolic. The 10 EMA is still way down here below 6,800. The 22 is way down here at 61. Now they're quickly catching up because of how fast price is moving, but they're still kind of a ways down. And so this current daily bar, by the way, is looking like a big shooting star, bearish reversal shooting star. A quick pull down to here would be the first bounce level that I'd be watching for. That's 6,800 basically. And that would also line up with some key horizontal resistance or prior resistance, now support, right? 6,800 was kind of that little area. And so that'd be the first level to be watching on the way down. And then below that, if it started to really pull back, then you're talking, anywhere along the sixes here. I personally would not like to see this get below the 6Ks as much as I want to buy a dip. So from a long-term investor perspective, I'm like, this would be great if it came all the way back down to, 5,500. But from a momentum perspective, a trading perspective, it'd be great if it just kind of paused at 6,100 and then just started to build a base around here and then took off from there. That would also line up with the weekly chart. If you go to the weekly, here's a 10 EMA on the weekly, still down here way at 5,600, right? So it is extended. I mean, there's just no way around that. It's certainly extended. Just the momentum, the bullish power to the upside has just been tremendous. And it certainly has just driven a lot of this move very quickly. But we're starting to see the FOMO. We're starting to see the Bitcoin's never going down ever again and all that good stuff. Now, I think personally from a long-term perspective, it's going to be good. It'll probably be a good opportunity to start buying into this. But keep in mind, the last 2 months have seen, how much percentage now are we talking about in the last 2 months? Not even 2 months, a month and a half, basically 100% move, almost exactly 100% move in just 42 days. So just an amazing, powerful move. There's going to be a correction, right? It's just like not sustainable. There's going to be a correction, even if it's a sideways, kind of correction. So looking at some retracement levels, if we do the entire move from the breakout point to 4,200, let's assume the top was here. If you do that, look at that. The 382 takes you to where I drew that arrow, which is the daily 10 EMA. And so that'd be the strongest level from which to see a bounce, right at the 382 level, the fib retracement level, which is again the 10 EMA. And then let me go back to the daily chart here. And then below that, I'll zoom in here for us. There we go. And below that, right, the 22, which would put it right around the 50% retracement level. So that wouldn't be bad, right, to see a 50% retracement from basically this impulse bar to the top right there, right to the moving averages, and then start to see a little bit of kind of consolidation, some base building, a new support level being established, right? For a long time, that was 5K. It was like 5K wouldn't break. And then finally, when it broke over 5,600, it was just like straight up. Now there's not really that much of a support level other than back here, right? This prior consolidation that has now been overtaken. It would not surprise me to see it pull back, maybe test some of these levels again, 6,800, kind of that number I keep looking at. And then below that, 61, 62. So that's really the window to be watching for a potential secondary entry. But what a run it's been. It definitely needs some time to cool off. The RSI on the daily is way up here now. I mean, there's just no way around it. It needs time to cool off. But, the trend is your friend. As we've been saying, the trend is your friend. Certainly, there's some divergence showing up here. Again, we've seen this in the past. So you can see the 4-hour RSI, lower low, while price is making a new high. And so again, another warning flag there. Selling volume is really starting to kick in here today. You're seeing a lot more volume come in here right at the highs. So there's definitely some rotation happening. There's some selling, some profit taking absolutely taking place here. And so just be mindful of that. Now, where is the profit taking going? Is it going into the alts? Is it going into some of these other names? Definitely some is going to the alts, right? So we'll look at XRP first. One of the bigger movers here today. And what I want to point out on some of these alts, let's go back to the daily charts here. I did a live stream on Saturday. I was talking about the potential reversals. And again, it continued lower. In all fairness, it continued lower for another 2 days. But I just held my positions. I basically rode through the pain because I had a strong conviction. I wasn't 100% sure, but I had a strong conviction that we were getting close and we're going to see a potential reversal in some of these alts. And in typical fashion, the way it generally happens is it's very fast and very quick. And, in a blink of an eye, Ripple went up 20+%, right? And so that's just the way it generally holds. So that was why I did a little front running there. Now, of course, that's the higher risk entry approach. You can wait for the big green candle, bullish engulfing on massive volume like we've seen here today, and then look for a pullback entry, some pause, because at this point you're feeling a little bit more confident that, hey, maybe there's a reversal happening now. Still, again, below the moving averages, so has in no way confirmed, but it's interesting to see that this reversal happened right at a key support level as well versus Bitcoin, right? So Ripple 4100 is basically a long time support held here in August and September, and has basically fully retraced right to that point. And we're seeing a quick reaction off that. Now, is this the low? Does Ripple just go from here and just start making new highs versus Bitcoin? Who knows? I am in no way going to hold out for that kind of a move, right? That's not my expectation. I was just looking for a little bit of a bounce. I've highlighted, the first resistance level, basically just above 6,000 on the BTC pair. That's where I would definitely be banking some here, me personally. And then from there, I'll go, right? If it starts to trend higher, make higher highs and higher lows, then I'll look for another entry. I'm not picking up XRP here for like a long-term hold or anything. Now, if you like XRP, then that may make some sense, right? Just came right back to support. It's bouncing hard at this point. Maybe you just hold on a little bit longer and take a big reversal in the trend. This one was just way overdone to the downside. It was due for a little bit of a bounce. It's just a question of how far does it bounce. If we go to the 4-hour view, the volume here is pretty strong, the strongest it's been here in months, right, since way back here. So definitely can't argue. And that last spike way back there, I believe that was, no, that wasn't Coinbase. It was something else. But quite the spike here. So definitely holding on. I was picking some XRP up back here in these levels. And so again, certainly took some down, some drawdown here temporarily. But I was just willing to, that was just me, my personal risk tolerance. I was willing to hold through some of that pain. So now this is absolutely back in the green. Now it's just a matter of how high do we go. So I'm just going to trail it up. What I'm looking at here, there's first resistance level here and here, and then the big one, like I said, basically around that 6,000 level. I'm going to see if I can hold out for that, see at least part of the position, see how much of it can ride there. Now then it's going to go straight up. There will absolutely be some pullback, some retracement. First level to look at on a pullback, if you're liking XRP and you want to maybe take an entry, and maybe that was the pullback in the last candle, but I'd be watching this breakout point. It's not unusual to see it break out and then throw back and retest. And so in and around 4,800 on the BTC pair, again, this is XRP Bitcoin on Binance. So maybe some sort of a pause here from the line that it just hit, and then maybe it takes out the next level after that, right? So that's one way to approach those. And if I was buying the dip entry, that would make sense because it's also going to line up with some of these moving averages, which should be kind of good support. And so in that scenario, then let's say I bought the dip here, my stop would probably be just like the low of this wick here, which would be below these moving averages. So I wouldn't give it much, more like 4 or 5%. First target again would be the most recent swing high. Even that would get you 2.5 R. And then if it hit the next target, that's about a 20% move. You're looking at a 4R multiple. Very strong trade if you're just looking for a trade, right? Buying it on the dip with a tight stop. If you swing anywhere between this line and that line, that certainly is a solid trade from that risk reward perspective. So that's what I'm looking at on Ripple right now. I'm just going to hold on. I'm not going to take any off at this point. At this point, I've already ridden through the pain. So I'm just like, well, worst case scenario, it's a break-even trade. Best case, it's going to be a 40%er for me or something, right? 30%er. So no big deal. XLM, looking at Lumens. Same thing, not quite as strong as XRP, but setting up nicely here for a potential breakout over this resistance. It's been trying here the last few days, and notice the battle happening here, right? It was pretty tight trading, just basically straight down. And then here the last few days, pretty choppy, volume's really starting to kick in. And so there's certainly a little bit of a battle taking place here. What's this line? Oh, I drew this line. That's right. Way back here was, let me go to the weekly chart. That was the last little bit of support on the weekly, and it's crazy that it just fully retraced right back to that. If we go to the daily chart, it's probably a little clearer. There we go. So that was, I don't even know if you would even consider that support at this point. That's basically end of December, early 2018, basically, before that big run up. And the price has gone all the way back to that point, right? Isn't that crazy? Right back to December of 2018, or 2017, excuse me. And so going back to the current price point here, on the daily chart again, this is what I'm looking at, right? The big picture, still oversold, still below the 10 EMA, nowhere near the 22 yet. But you can see that the current daily candle is a pretty solid spike from a volume perspective. And if this candle finishes where it's at now, I know there's still some time left, but this would be a nice bullish reversal candle on strong volume. Again, the strongest candle we've seen here in months. So that's a good, at least an early indicator, even if you don't want to necessarily take a trade because you're counter trend trading here. That's a good kind of early signal to say, hey, start paying attention, right? Get this on the radar. And if we look at some of the other alts, they're all showing this very strong reversal. Obviously, XRP, you can see the volume spike on that. It's just dwarfs the other candles. But if we look at some of the other ones, right, let's look at NEO. Pretty good volume coming in here on NEO as it tries to reverse. Still not quite taking out the highs of the last couple of days. Has some work to do. But some of the other ones are still looking pretty good, right? Cardano, a little bit of volume kicking in here in the last 4 days. We'll see if we can finally take out some of these moving averages. So I don't think there's a need to FOMO yet, just because, you're still very much in a downtrend. You're still fighting moving averages, resistance. The trend hasn't changed, right? It doesn't look like this yet where it's certainly going flat or anything. There's going to be multiple waves up, even if it does finally start taking off. And so just kind of keep that in mind. But I'm looking at these now because of the volume spikes that are coming in. If we look at ETH BTC here, not quite there yet. I would love to see more volume on ETH. It hasn't really had that that volume spike yet. And in fact, if you look at the long-term chart of ETH, it's sitting right on the ledge here. Let me go to on Coinbase. It's got to hold this line here, or it's not going to look pretty for ETH. Here's the weekly view of Ethereum on Coinbase, and you can see very clearly, horizontal support, horizontal support, horizontal support. This is going back to November of 2017. And then previously, that was the breakout point back here, right? You can see this big breakout point. This was previous resistance. So basically, the entire history of ETH versus BTC is right at this line, right? It's sitting here. So it's kind of an inflection point for ETH. It's got to bounce here if it's going to really start to turn around. If it breaks below, that could really look ugly for ETH. So I'd be kind of cautious here from a long-term perspective, because if it does break below, it doesn't have a whole lot of room to go, right? You got maybe down to here, and then from there, somewhere down in this range or that range. So from a percentage basis, though, that's kind of a lot, right? You got 40% down to the next support level. So I would I'd be keeping an eye on this one here. Now I'm holding out hope that it finds support and it bounces, but there's certainly no bullish indicators yet. Let me go to the 4-hour view. Right, it's still very much underperforming Bitcoin. Again, there's the volume spike happening here over the last couple of days, not quite as much as some of these other names. So I'd like to see this guy really reverse. This would really bring a lot more confidence into the overall market if it could finally start to show some life. I do have a little bit of ETH that I am holding. I have several positions: ETH, Lumens, Ripple, Neo, Cardano. And so let's see if this one does anything. The other one was, let's go to Cardano. I'll deep dive that one real quick here, and then I'll take a look at any names you guys want to look at. So Cardano, again, hasn't done a whole lot yet. Very similar price action in terms of right at support, right at this long time support level, just above it. See if it can hold up here. Again, the big picture of the trend is still very much downward since April. Just bouncing here a little bit, seeing some volume coming in here, a little bit of volume, not as much as some of these others, but it's above average. Today is certainly above average, above the prior 2 red days, not quite as strong as I believe this was Saturday volume spike, but we'll see if we can get a little follow through. So on the near term, let me zoom in here on Cardano. It's trying to form a little, I mean, it's a very choppy looking, but it's trying to form a little bit of a double bottom type of pattern. I mean, it'll probably look a little bit more clear if you look like at a 12-hour or something, right? You can see a little bit of a double bottom pattern, not a clean one, but the point is it's tested this support level twice and so far holding. And so at this point, much below 915, even 920 if you wanted to keep it tighter, much below that, probably won't look good for this guy. So especially with BTC looking a little, vulnerable now, what I'd be looking at is I want to see this guy break out and take out this resistance here. That would be very positive. That would take out the swing high that we saw over the weekend. That would also take out this resistance and confirm this little bit of a double bottom that's trying to form here. If it breaks below that and just like fails and rolls over, I'll probably just cut this one loose. I'm not so sure I would want to write it out. At this point, I would just wait for a clear reversal signal to start forming. So for now, I'm holding it, but that's probably my get out of the way level, basically 920, 915, around there. If it starts to close below that on the 4-hour, I may say time to move on. If you want to look at it from the dollar side as an alternative, especially with Bitcoin looking a little toppy, right? This is certainly looking much stronger. It broke this downtrend, has run up to the first target I highlighted over the weekend here. Next target up is about 0.09 cents. And so that's the alternative here, right? Is this, let's see if there's a bearish divergence showing up here. Slight, not that much. But, on the alternative, if I wanted to get out of the way from this perspective, then I'd probably just wait for the trend to clearly change. For me, that'd be, a break below this guy right here. If it starts to roll over and break below that, I may get out of the way there. At most, if you really wanted to give it room, would be right here, right? This, what is this level? 0.068, right? So a break below that certainly would look pretty negative now that it's made a higher high. So if it made a lower low after that, that's just going to say it's probably done or it's going to go sideways for a little bit. So that's the 2 ways to look at it. Obviously, people trade from different angles, USD, BTC, however you're looking at it. So 2 ways to look at it there. Let's go back to ETH real quick, and then I'll look at your chart there. I want to go back to ETH dollar just because this is why I'm liking it more, even though the BTC side's still kind of stalling out a little bit and not looking good. This is why I've been liking it, just because it's been building this long time base. Finally broke out over that 180 level, went to 200. My next target on the way up was 220. Got pretty close here today, hit 215, not quite 220 yet. I'm going to see, again, if it reverses versus Bitcoin, then I think 220 is going to be an easy target. And at that point, looking at, 240, 250 is the next way up. So that's why I'm going to hold on to it for now. Neo USD real quick. I'm just going to go back through these real quick to look at the dollar pairs. Neo, we looked at that. It looks just like Cardano breaking that downtrend. XLM USD. Again, breaking this downtrend here. So that looks good on XLM. Again, broke that a few days ago, which is why I was looking at that from a BTC perspective. Gave you this little throwback right to the line. And then so far moving higher. So, still looking okay. See if we can get some more outperformance versus Bitcoin. All right. Yeah, IOTA, good point. IOTA has been very strong here as of late. Where's the IOTA on Binance? So on Binance, it's breaking the downtrend versus Bitcoin, which is nice. We'll look at it on the dollar. It must be even stronger on the dollar pair. So you can see that little break there. That looks pretty good. Not as much volume as I would have liked. I mean, it's certainly above average. You know, can't argue with that. But I would have liked to see like one of those giant, giant spikes there. Let me see how it looks on the dollar. Yeah, pretty strong. Look at that. It went right to the target there. It's always interesting when I highlight these levels. I mark them up, you know, days ago or even before that. And it's always interesting to me to see the price basically move right to those levels and then stop right there. So yeah, so IOTA has run up basically 37, 38 cents was kind of that next target. It looks like it's pausing right there, a little bit of resistance. What would be good here is if it pulled back right to that 33-cent mark again, and then kind of had some legs to run through, especially that let some things cool off here a little bit, but definitely a strong one. Above 38, then it looks pretty good. It looks really good at over 38, right? Because then you're looking at, you know, 41 and then 47, 48. So could be for a decent move above 38. What is that? That'd be another 25%. All right, let's look at EOS. So this is my kind of my target window on the way up. If it reverses, it looks like it's trying to here. Let me go to the zoom in here a little bit for us. I'm betting there's a bullish divergence on this double bottom, right? So we got a double bottom here. Let's look at the RSI. Definitely a bullish divergence there, as well as on the MACD histogram. So you got that guy there, you got this guy there, right? And as I always stress, right, like there's never anything 100%. You can see bearish divergence, you can see bullish divergence. They're just kind of signaling, hey, there's a potential slowdown in momentum here, one way or the other. And that's what this is showing, right? The selling pressure starting to wane. The fact that this is starting to reverse a little bit looks really good. Let me use this here. I'm going to steal my marker. Getting above this guy here, starting to close above this level would be very positive, right? So you're looking at 7,700, basically 77, 78. If it could spike right through that, you know, and kind of shoot through this, that would really look good, as it would start to really confirm this little double bottom that's starting to be formed here. And then at that point, I'd be looking at, you know, your next target at 8,500 and then 8,900 versus BTC. Now let's look at this versus dollar. I think dollar has a lot more potential, which is, you know, would make sense versus Bitcoin. I'm going to adjust my line here. It looks like it broke out above this line and held it and then took off. You could also argue, you know, this is kind of the appropriate trend line. That's the thing with trend lines, is it can be very subjective. So I'm going to just leave my line the way it is. Doesn't really matter at this point anyway. Clearly the trend has changed on the dollar pair. And the real level to be watching was the horizontal price point on EOS. That was this guy right here. So what was that? $5, right? Ran up $5, pulled back, pulled back, pulled back, finally broke through. And when it broke $5, I mean, just very strong volume on that candle. So good to see the confirmation there of a breakout candle. Had a little bit of a throwback, pushing higher now. Also clearing this next level of resistance back here, right? So just looking positive right now. Prices briefly went over that $6 mark before pulling right back. So EOS is looking pretty good here. Let's zoom out here. I'm going to look at the dollar chart from a big picture view on the day. Take this off real quick. Of course, this is a big breakout back here over 440. Looks like it cleared that, 647 to 674 is kind of the next little window to be watching. It's this guy back here. And then above that, I mean, you know, it's just going to get, look, these are all just kind of like the next levels of resistance on the way up, right? $9 after that. But very nice trend. So many of these names, right, just since December. Hasn't been an easy ride for sure, but so many of these names just since the lows are just like, they hit the bottom and then they've just been marching straight up. Like it's been impressive. I mean, look at that. EOS. Wow, EOS hit $1.61 at the lows. Good grief. Let us never speak of those days again. That was painful for a lot of people. I know it was. Oh. All right. Let's see here. I did EOS, XRP. Let's go through some of these other alerts here to see if anything else pops up that is worth taking a look at. Some potential setups maybe. I'm going to look from just the BTC pair. Obviously, the USD pairs are all moving. So we looked at IOTA. Somebody mentioned Link on the Slack channel. I know Link has been in play here for at least a week. Aunt, look at that one. So Link and Aunt Key. I noticed this one was popping up on the other. There's a name from yesteryear, Self Key. Some of these small crap names are trying to join the party now. Arc has been moving nicely today. This is generally a name I don't trade. It's just Arc's tough for me. Let's look at Key real quick before I forget. Yeah, small sat name. Those small sat names are like, those are tough. Maybe more from like a long-term speculative play might be worth looking at, but you could argue for a little double bottom here on this daily chart. Definitely trying to clear this resistance level right now around that 58 sat, maybe 60. And then above that, I mean, there's going to certainly be plenty of levels along the way up. The next one up is this guy here for sure, 84, right? That's kind of your next major target between 78 and 84. But if you're willing to take a little shot at it, there's some potential there. That's from a percentage basis, that's a big move, right? That's a 36% move. But these move so quickly that, on the downside, it could very quickly be, 15% like nothing, right? So just that's the trade-off with some of these smaller names. Let's go look at Link real quick. Looking at Link BTC here. Whoa, look at that beautiful candle. Dang. That's a choppy move here the last few days. Good grief. Let me clear these old. These are my markups for the weekend. Look at that. Man, talk about stop hunting. Jeez. Fake out, shake out, breakout. Yeah, so, I mean, the key level here obviously was this 895, 9,000 level basically. Ran up, little throwback, nice trade higher, and then just over the weekend just totally gave it all back, undercut that support level, and then I believe this is news related, right? But just crazy. Quick reversal on spike volume, pushing right through that level back again. I'm sure that shook a lot of people out, but Link, all right. Link is basically approaching this long time support that gave way, and is now resistance. So we'll see. Looks like it's trying to push through there. That was interesting to see. Again, that was the profit taking zone here over the weekend. Pulled back, spiking right through. Generally, on the second time up, they will crack it and go through it. Right. Usually not a double top. Right. Usually, a double top is after a bigger run. When it pushes up and pulls back on the second try, it generally pushes through. So I'd be looking at maybe like 1,300 as the next, 13,000 as the next target on Link. And then, of course, all-time highs after that, which is closer to 15,000. All right. Link. Nice. KNC. Some news, huh? Yeah, there's going to be more news, I think. A little bit of a spike on news. The challenge with news is, if it's like a huge seismic shift for the project, then it makes a difference. But, this is not like the days of 2017 where all you had was a rumor of an announcement, and that was enough to drive a name, and any sort of like, phone integration or it being added to any exchange, like that was enough to kick off a multi-day rally. Now it's kind of like you'd be lucky if you get a few hours rally. So it's always interesting with news. I'm not as play the news as much anymore as I used to be, especially with these short-lived pumps. But if it's a big news event, then certainly it's worth watching, right? It'll put something in play for a little while, but a little bit of a wick there. See what else we got here. So we looked at Ripple, Link, Ontology. That was the other one. Ontology, Neo. And I always trade, generally when I'm trading these, I'm like Ontology and Neo. I keep an eye on both of them. And it's always hard to decide which one you go with. And I ended up picking Neo. Looks like I should have picked Ontology. Ontology is finally clearing here in the last candle, finally clearing over this resistance level, really confirming a little bit of a reversal starting to happen here. So that's good. Nice to see that happening here. Next level up, almost hit it already, 1900. So we'll see if it can clear that next level up here. But looks like a potential reversal is underway for ONT. Let me see here. Go to the daily chart. I'll look at that 1900 level is right at the 22 EMA on the daily chart. At least it's getting over the 10. Again, that's step one. Generally the way it works, right? You kind of spike through, maybe you get a little pause or pull back, and then if it's a real reversal, it'll start to get going again. So we'll see. It's looking good though. Ontology. If I get impatient with Neo, I might have to abandon Neo for Ontology. This 1900 level is a significant level too. Look at this back here. It was a big time wall back here before the breakout. Look at that right there. Was support here, and then of course the big breakout. A little bit of a bounce happened here when it came right back to it, and of course breaking right below it. So that's going to be interesting. If it breaks over that, that'll be good, but I'm going to bet you see a little bit of a pause there. Interesting. All right, let's see here. OK Cash. Oh, there's a name from yesteryear. Cardano. We looked at those here. Let's go to the alerts real quick. I'm going to see if what was on the move here today. A lot of these names are not hitting the top BMI radar yet because the big picture is still weak, right? So they're not hitting the BMI index just yet. So I think the best indicators right now are going to be the on the move alerts and the power pivot ones, as I mentioned last time. So we can see, let's see, Theta, VeChain was moving. We already looked at Link, Neo, Ontology. We looked at Ripple, IOTA. We haven't looked at ARC. We looked at KNC. There it is. Tube. Let's see here. OK Cash. All right, let's look at a few. VeChain. VeChain. Finally getting some love, maybe. VeChain. What a breakout. Failed breakout there. So I was trading VeChain back here earlier this year, and it was breaking out above this. It hit my target. I mean, almost exactly. It took forever too. It was like a slow mover. Lost a lot of patience with this guy, but basically hit the target, fully retraced, broke down, and then unfortunately, not only did it break down, but it just totally undercut the prior support base, and has just been going lower yet. So on the way up, if this guy continues to rally from the dollar pair, yes, VeChain looks good, but doesn't everything because of Bitcoin. So I'm kind of more interested in the BTC pairs. I'd be watching this one. This might not be bad for a quick bounce trade, but above 105, I would, that's going to be kind of the first wall. It would not surprise me to see if it stalls out there. Let's go take a look at BTC. Bitcoin. Yeah, this is on Bitstamp. Looking like it is getting a little toppy here. Don't worry, guys. Bitcoin's never going down ever again. Yes, that's sarcasm. Yeah, this one has a pretty good bearish divergence too. So getting a little toppy, no doubt. And I mean, come on. Does this surprise anybody? It was just a matter of when, but jeez, what a move. I'm not so sure this is a shortable top. Maybe it is. I'm not going to short it. Not yet, at least. If anything, I'm going to be looking longer term now for more dip buys opportunities. What were the other ones here? Theta. Look at that. Theta formed the Eiffel Tower pattern. Man, right back at support. Nice reversal off that support level. See if this might not be for a bad swing trade, like a multi-day reversal trade if it can clear 1400. Try it a couple times. There's a big wick, pulled back, another attempt higher. So maybe over 1400 Theta might be for a good, and this one likes to move. So I always like to pay attention to these prior high flyers because they get a lot of attention again when they get going. So this one could be one to look at. Let me see here. Let's say I picked it up there. My stop would be basically the low of this impulse candle, as I've explained several times. Like if the buyers that were pushing that lose that battle, then I just want to get out of the way, right? I want to bet on the buyers that are strong, and so that'd be my stop. 2-1 doesn't, and you got to get up to here to be a 2-1. Is that possible? It is, right? That's kind of your next little wall. So maybe that's the place to look at it. There as a first target. That's about a 27 to 28% move. Not too shabby. Theta's been known to do that. So I'm going to put that one on the radar. Theta at 1400, 1405 if you want to be exact. Well, actually, if you want to be exact, here's where I would probably do it. Be the top of these past two wicks right here. At least this last wick right there. And the challenge with these is, like, if you're buying a conditional order, like, you're going to get sucked in on these wicks, right? That's always the challenge. And so there's two approaches. One is just to set an alert at this price point, and then you get the alert when it pops, and then ideally you get a little bit of a quick retracement, and then you enter there. Or you get the alert, and then after the alert, you set the buy order in case it pushes through higher again, right? So that's a couple of ways to do it. But might not be a bad one there. I'm just cycling through some of these alerts here real quick to see if there's anything that interests me here from a BTC pair perspective. Most of this is all dollars, power pivots, FTM, VeChain, Tomo, Decred, ETH, Lumens, ARC. I forgot about ARC. ARC maybe finding a little bit of a low here. Man, what a steep drop that was for ARC. Going way back here. Just undercut all the last summer's prices. You know, the other one too was Lisk was on the radar the other day. How's that looking? Yikes. Couldn't make it. See, I was looking for it to break out above this guy and just fell off a ledge. Gone. Ugh. These alts are just getting brutalized. Dash. Looking like a little double bottom on Dash, maybe. Triple bottom. You can call it that. Maybe there. Right? Just nonetheless, pretty clear level of support showing up here. Trying to get going. I wouldn't be against taking a shot at Dash here. It's only a 1R multiple to the neckline. You'd have to really wait for it'd have to confirm by breaking out to make that trade worthwhile, but it'd be about 12 to 15% trade on the upside. All right, let me quickly cycle through some of these others that I had on my watch list. Haven't refreshed this here in a little bit. We looked at EOS, Dash, BNB. Let's go to BNB here real quick. The daily chart. BNB, man, again another fake out. This is again the dollar pair. If you look at BNB, BTC, of course the Binance hack certainly has been an issue. And so I covered this one over the weekend during the stream. And so, for example, we were looking at these pullbacks. At the time, I was saying, you know, a break below this really confirms it looks toppy. A measured move down here takes you to in between these two levels, right around that 618. So far, it's finding a little bit of support at that 50% retracement, but it's not looking too strong. There was a big green candle here, but it was a wick. A lot of selling right into that 10 EMA. So I'm still betting on you get this retracement down to the 618. So sub 2700 Binance, and then below that 26, 24.50 is kind of that little window I'm looking at here. And again, that's assuming you get a bounce here, but That's what I'd be looking at. That also lines up with the measured move of this little double top pattern that it's put in. Quite the pullback here that it's had. When's it time to abandon a coin completely? That's a good question. At some point, right? Like, that not all of these projects are going to make it. So at some point, you got to figure out, like, when do I just say forget it, cut your losses? This is never coming back. For me, it just kind of depends on how much of a percentage of my holdings I have in that coin. Like, if it's lost so much value that it's like worth, now like 0.5% of everything I own, at that point, I don't even care. I just forget about it. Like, I leave it there. But if it's still like, oh man, it's 10% of my holdings or something, and you don't think it's coming back, or you think it's dead, or something's changed in the project, or maybe they're not developing or something, at some point you got to decide, yeah, what's the point here, and move on to something better. And if it does come back, you could always just re-enter later, right? But that's the thing with this space. It's just so new, still so much change happening that something could look great today, and then a year from now just be dead, right? Look at names like Golem and Psyop Coin and all that were like the high flyers for the longest time, and and they're gone, right? Like, you get the occasional pumps, but for me, like, these are never coming back, right? And I was telling people about that. Like, some of these coins are going to drop, and they're just never coming back. You're going to get the little pumps here and there, but are they going to be back here at the old highs? Most likely not, right? That's just the reality with some of these. So yeah, at some point you just got to forget about it, cut your losses when you're just not comfortable with it anymore, and just move on to something else, right? And start looking to make up gains on names that are leading the pack, the next generation of leaders, right? Because there's just going to be a lot of rotation in this space as it continues to develop. And obviously, you could always just cut your losses and go, back into BTC or something if you want to just kind of maintain that broader crypto exposure. But yeah, it's just so new right now. Like, if we look at the coin market cap, look at how interesting this has gone right back to these highs here from 17, right? Like, this here in the summer, last summer was what was that, 56% basically, as far as where the dominance level reached, and we hit 60% here. 60, we were a little bit over 60 for a while there. And these two peaks back here are, basically 62, 63%. And you're talking way back when, at this point, right? We're talking 2017, end of 2017. Like, that's crazy to think that dominance has just gone straight back up so fast. So, what were some of the other names? Oh, Monero. Wanted to talk Monero. So looking at Monero again, I was liking this one more from the USD side. Very nice little base it was building. Finally breaks out. My first target on this was 84 bucks. It's already hit that. Again, above that, then you're looking at 90, in and around there. 90, 93 is kind of the next target. So we'll see if we can get there. But Monero still looking pretty good. How's it look from the BTC side? Monero. It was trying to bounce here a few days ago. Got undercut, trying to bounce back again. It's pretty choppy looking though. Man, that's a rough looking potential reversal. A lot of chop there happening on Monero. We'll see if it can turn the corner. Oh, let me see here. Engine. It's probably a double bottom on the daily here, maybe. Maybe not. Lower low still. Not quite the reversal. Bat. Maybe double bottom on bat daily chart. It's a good candidate for a double bottom. If this one sees another one of those big green spikes here, bullish engulfing, I'd be looking at a double bottom buy here. Above 5,400 for me would probably be a good level to look at bat. GT, Neo, Lumens, Zcash. My goodness. They're just all dying. Alts are dead. It's over, people. Just sell all your cryptos. It's over. I'm kidding. QKC, yeah, still no turn in the corner there. I think that's it. Let me go to big cap names here. I mean, we looked at most of them. We could look at Litecoin. We could look at Bitcoin Cash. Any others you guys want to see before we move on? Tron, maybe. Probably it. Let's go to Tron, because Tron USD was actually looking pretty good, but let's see what Tron BTC does. Maybe. A spike. Pretty good volume starting to come in here. It was looking good over the weekend too. Just I was watching this level here where I have the arrow drawn, could never clear that. And so I'd be just basically moving this down here to this next level down. And that's the way it works, right? Prior support resistance, look for that confirmation. If that doesn't happen, look for the next level out. And so we can see what's happened here. This was a prior support level, broke down, rallied, couldn't happen. It rallies again and it breaks out, then that looks good. If it fails, then look for a higher low and then maybe a potential inverse head and shoulder to start forming there. And then at that point, pattern looks very strong, right? So if it gives you an inverse head and shoulder, that's a pretty good move there. Be about a measured move up to 390s. And then above that, your resistance level, which is 400. So that's what I'd be looking at. See if we can get anything like that there on Tron. Let's see, what else? Bitcoin Cash. BCH. Yep. Just look at how much selling is happening here at 5,200, 52,000, whatever you want to call it. Until it gets above that, for me, that's going to be the level to be watching. But again, similar to Tron, maybe potential inverse head and shoulder forming here. If it pulls back, makes a little bit of higher low, and then starts to blast through, above 5,200 looks positive. Till then, going to just remain caution on this one here. Looks pretty rough. Litecoin BTC, Bitcoin at 7,600. Sorry, I was like, that's my my short attention span self showing up there. I'm looking at three things at once. See where it happens. What happens at 7,500? We'll see if we get a little bit of a bounce from there or a slice right through. Sorry, back to Litecoin. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, no, you have a good point, man. Some lessons though we need to learn by experience, unfortunately, right? And that's just true with so much in life. You think about that, there's like so much advice given, and we could learn lessons from people that have gone before us about different things in life. But I mean, how often do we just need to feel it for ourselves before we go, okay? And then we are a little bit wiser. That's just the way it works, unfortunately. You and me both, though. I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way, even though I read about them and watched videos about them. And until you kind of feel some pain, you go, okay, I can remember this one. So I'm looking at Litecoin, just still pulling in, coming into a key support level. Be interesting to see if it holds here, but this one's going to be interesting because the halvening is still happening. How much of that was already baked in and how much of that has already been played out, who knows? It's still kind of a ways out. I mentioned this over the weekend. This is really what I'm watching, Litecoin USD. If it continues to hold this trend line, for me, that's good, right? As long as it's still above this. So that's what I'd be watching here. A breakout above 96, 97 bucks looks pretty good. Could take you back to that 110, 112. That's going to be interesting when they resume withdrawals. The thing with that is how many people really care about that as much as they care about trading, right? And trading is live, so they're okay. Because if you were really worried about some sort of like exit scam or something happening, you would have seen a lot of people just dumping Bitcoin, dumping everything into something else until, I don't know, until there was a way to take it out, right? Just to preserve value. Obviously, Bitcoin's been rallying, so people are holding it, but I don't know. I'm not so sure it's going to be that big of a deal. Who knows? I mean, the bigger catalysts are just going to be, what does Bitcoin do here, right? I think that's going to be the bigger issue. Bitcoin continues to drop. I don't know if the withdrawals is going to be much of a factor as much as it is, this. So, yeah, and deposits too. And that's the other thing I've been thinking about is like, there's some alts that, people are just waiting to buy that maybe they want to deposit more funds, especially now that Bitcoin is run. So that's the other side of the coin. Who knows? I don't know if it's going to be a big impact. I personally don't think so, but who knows? What was the other one I wanted to look at? Icon dollar. It's tried. Just no love for Icon. It's trying here, and to see how it looks on the BTC side. Still making lower lows and lower highs. Icon. Even Ripple's having a little pullback here. The rest of these markets. So Neo. Yeah, I can't blame you though. A lot of people saw that Binance hack and it was like, it's just a reminder of counterparty risk that still exists in our industry, even though Binance is probably like one of the best in terms of security and all that, and they've stopped multiple attempts here over the years, or over the year. But yeah, just goes to show you that no one's really infallible and anything can happen. That's always my approach, is anything can happen, even when it's kind of inconvenient for me and maybe costs me some opportunity. I generally do not have 100% of my trading capital on any one exchange. That's just me. It's just until the space matures more and there's a little bit more security or insurance mechanisms in place to support people's funds. Like until all that's in place, which it may never be, I'm just not going to keep 100% of my funds on any one exchange. That's just me. I still like Binance. I think they're the best, but I just don't trust anyone that much. There's nothing I trust that much. And the alternative too is like, okay, there's also the risk of like your own personal account getting hacked, and like, okay, but if you get hacked, then do you really want to expose yourself to just one account? That's just the way I think. I think we're good on this though. So speaking of decentralized exchanges, I don't know. I mean, you know what I think? Even though decentralized exchanges may certainly help with some of these issues, and certainly if the volume starts picking up, I think that'd be great, because that was the dream, right? Kind of the decentralized nature of all this. The pessimist in me just says that's just not going to happen. I think Wall Street, the big banks, the major financial institutions will continue to grab a foothold on this space and continue to just gain dominance and market share. And it's going to come from different ways. There's going to be ETFs. There's going to be new exchanges that pop up that are going to start competing with Binance and Coinbase that are going to be backed by the traditional Wall Street exchanges. And when I say Wall Street, I also mean, foreign exchanges too, right? The Hong Kong and Singapore and European and all that. I just see it continuing to centralize, unfortunately. It's just going to be the nature of it. Because I think as long as Bitcoin continues to gain dominance and, its notoriety, and we see these prices continuing to get up there, yeah, there's going to be people wanting to trade it. And there's going to be people wanting to have access to the markets. But the traditional investor, the traditional Wall Street trader and all that, like, they don't want to mess around with some of these other exchanges. They just want to they want to have that security, right? They're used to, hey, my funds, my capital is secured and I have insurance on it in case something happens, and FDIC and all that stuff. And if RSX and Backed and some of these other institutions are going to offer the same thing, like, why would I go to Binance when I could just set up my account here, right? And so that's just the way I think it's going to happen. The question is going to be what happens to some of these other exchanges, right? And I think we're going to see more of them close. I don't think Binance is going away, but I think, we'll see more of them close. There's just a lot of volume that's just really dried up. We've already seen it happen. A lot of them have already shut down just due to liquidity or whatever. But who knows? That's my thought. My hope is we do see some more decentralization. My fear is we won't. All right. I think that's it, my friends. I don't know any other names or setups I'm looking at here, other than the names I'm already in. It's not a huge list at this point. Yeah, there's some things developing. You know what I'll do? I'm going to add Theta to my watch list here because I think Theta is worth watching here as well. But that's really it. I think right now the big watch is going to be BTC. What happens to Bitcoin? Does it keep pulling back more? I think we're pretty close. We've seen the targets getting hit. I mean, how much more could we ask for at this point, right? Yeah, a lot of people would have bought more through their stockbroker too. I mean, that's the same thing, right? I maintain a pretty healthy stock trading account. And there was times where stock trading was like choppy or slower. And yep, if I would have been able to buy a little bit more, I would have bought through them. Now, you could have bought through like GBTC. Generally, I don't, unless it's like a smaller position and a longer hold, just because it has a lot more slippage. It's just not as efficient, right, as if I would have just been able to buy BTC directly. But, GBTC would have given you the same exposure for the stock traders. So I know that's not available to everybody, but, it's basically followed the same path, right? You broke out over that level, and then it's pretty much since then has gone up 100%. So, that was a good alternative. Now, today we saw tons of selling on GBTC, which a lot of the Wall Street crowd said, get me out of this thing before the market closes because who knows what's going to happen overnight. And you'll likely see this thing gap down tomorrow, so we'll see. It's a big, ugly reversal bar today showing up on GBTC. All right. I think that's it, guys. I don't know if any other... Yeah, GBTC's been around for quite some time. I've bought and sold it over the years, or not years, but through last year, I was buying and selling it a little bit through my stock account. It was just another way for me to add a little bit of crypto exposure for the bounces. Let's go to the daily chart. But it's got some history. I mean, look at it. This thing goes way back here. I don't believe it was really largely available for trading until like 17 is really when at least when I was really more exposed to it. But last year, for like some of these little bounces, I was trading it there. I know it's available for me. I don't know, you have to check on some brokers. The only thing I don't like about, I wish that they would do with GBTC is it's not optionable. It would have been great if it was optionable, because then I could have bought some puts on it and hedged that way, right? As opposed to selling Bitcoin, you could just short GBTC. So that would have been cool. All right, guys, I think that's it for now. We'll see how this transpires over the next few hours to see if there's a little bit more action. We're starting to see some back and forth, some choppy action. So we'll see how it goes. But thanks for being here as always, and we'll talk to you next time. Have a good one, guys. Take care.